Okay, thank you, Robin. I was just struggling with technology there, trying to get off mute, but I think I've succeeded. So, yeah, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining. So I'll click on to the first slide, where you'll see the agenda for today. So, just a quick intro. I'm Gavin Morgan, and I head up business development for IoT within CAD-IT. I joined the company in May this year after working for over 30 years in aerospace manufacturing. And joining me today is Andrew Howarth, and he's our IoT applications consultant. He's also got extensive experience working in manufacturing and also in the printing industry. So today we're going to cover the agenda that you can see on the screen. But the overall aim of the webinar is to try and demystify the topic of IoT. I find there's so much information out there. You know, if you go on the web or LinkedIn or anywhere like that, you know, the subject can get extremely complex and you get lost in it, and people can't really get their heads around. First of all, you know, what is it? What is IoT? And how do I get started? How can I get going? What do I need to do first? So we're hopefully going to address that question throughout the content of this webinar. So we want to share our insights into how you can easily start your digital transformation journey and deliver some value back into your businesses very quickly. Now, the information we're going to share is intentionally quite foundational, but it's not our intent to teach anyone to suck eggs or, you know, insult anyone's intelligence. We know there's a lot of very knowledgeable people out there doing this thing, and we just feel it's important that we all get on the same page and we all set off with the same base level of understanding before we get into the more complex areas of IoT. So today's webinar, it's the first in a series of 4 that we're going to do around the whole topic of IoT. And we're planning to do those over the coming weeks. And you can see the dates and the topics on the screen there. Today is more focused on getting everybody to understand the foundations, as I've said, and how to get going. But in future ones, we will focus more deeply into the topics you can see. Please look out for these being advertised through the normal channels such as LinkedIn, etc., as you did for this one. And of course, please sign up. Right, before we get into it then, just a little bit of background about CAD-IT. Some of you may have heard of us, but we may be new to some people too. We're a global company headquartered out of Singapore, currently around 700 employees globally. With offices around, dotted around the globe. We are an industrial technology provider, and we can offer solutions that cover design, manufacturing and service phases across a product's life cycle. As well as offering software products, we also provide consultancy and resources to implement the solutions. So it's not just about selling software and getting a commission from whoever. It's about doing the implementation right from the start to understanding what value the solution can give and working with the customer right through implementation and making sure that we have delivered that value as well. So we partner with many software vendors, some of which are on the slide. These aren't all of them by any stretch, but we do also develop and sell our own software solutions as well. And that complements a full portfolio of offerings, as I said earlier, that cover design, manufacturing and service phases. Siemens are probably our biggest partner. We do partner with some of their competitors as well. So we are licensed resellers of many of Siemens products and many of the others as well that you can see on the screen. And just to say that, as well as covering the different parts of a product's life cycle, we cover many industry sectors. It's fair to say automotive and aerospace are the ones that tend to dominate the customer base at the moment, but we do touch into the other verticals as well. And that is reflected in this slide, showing many of the companies that we've currently doing business with or have done business with in the past. Okay, so let's get into the real topic for discussion today, which is IoT. So the first one is, what is IoT versus IIoT? These acronyms that get thrown around so easily. So IoT, the Internet of Things. The slide's making a rather obvious point, really, but quite a lot of people take this for granted, I feel. We've all been using IoT in our domestic lives for a long time, and it continues to grow in terms of its capabilities. We've got things in our pockets and around our homes that are connected to and are leveraging internet-enabled services, such as the one shown on the slide, Netflix, etc. And this has positively disrupted all our lives, and it's made things easier and more economical. A good example I always share is, on a Saturday night, you want to watch the latest film. So you used to get in your car, well, if you're as old as I am anyway, you used to get in your car, take a trip down to the Blockbuster video shop, hoping and praying that they still had enough copies left on the shelf. And you bring it back home and watch it, and then hopefully remember to take it back the next day and not get charged a fine for late return. But now we turn on our smart TVs and we access the Netflix library in the cloud, and we pay a small fee for the privilege. So it's got easier, it's got cheaper, and it's more convenient. Okay, so there you go. That's IoT in our daily lives. So you think about an industrial context, the approach is exactly the same. The things are replaced with industrial equipment, such as machinery, controllers, sensors, motors, valves, and we use internet-enabled services again to collect, store, transform, analyze, and learn from the data that comes from these connected devices. And again, this makes our working lives more efficient, because now we can collect and process infinitely larger data sets than ever before. And this is quicker and cheaper to execute, as when we're leveraging computing power rather than many clever human brains to carry out the task. So when you hear about the industrial Internet of Things and the ways it can improve your operations and services, it kind of gets overwhelming, especially if you're just starting out. And it's often portrayed to be the answer to all life's problems, isn't it? We've got endless artificial intelligence, machine learning, closed loop, digital twin capabilities. All these terms get thrown around, and with all these possibilities, it becomes hard to separate what's realistic to achieve in the short term and what's more visionary for the future, and perhaps don't need to worry about it straight away. So, how practical is it to implement predictive maintenance, build a closed loop digital twin, or automate your systems with artificial intelligence? If you ask yourself the question, do I even have to do any of these things to get value from IoT? The answer should be a resounding no. Well, the answer is a resounding no. So why do people speak in this visionary language then? Well, it's because IoT, it is capable of game-changing efficiency and productivity. It's easy to get excited and carried away by thinking of the really complicated and powerful use cases, with mind-bending benefits and value. But if you start with this as an initial approach, then there's a high probability you won't deliver much value at all. You'll spend a lot and deliver very little back. And because of all the powerful capabilities an IoT solution possesses, it's easy to believe that getting started with any form of IoT is complex, and that it's expensive and it's resource heavy. But we believe that with the right solution and the right strategy, it shouldn't be any of these things. So, taking a more realistic approach to the high impact use cases described here is neither complex, expensive, or resource heavy. It's simple because you can start with a small proof of concept and then easily scale up when you're ready. And that allows your implementation to be as gradual or as fast as you need it to be. It's cheap because you can start small and prove value before jumping all in. And that should reduce your upfront expenses and capital expenditure. And it also eases the burden on your employees by using out-of-the-box connectivity components and ready-made applications. And this removes the need for large teams to manage implementation. And then starting small and focusing on these three sort of main use cases, it allows you to plan and align your strategy first before things get uncontrollable and too complex too quick. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to hand over to Andrew.
Thanks, Gav. Good afternoon, everyone. I can see a few friendly faces or friendly names on that attendees list, so thank you everyone for joining. So I'm just going to transition the pack to just share the next few slides. But what I really want to focus on next is the benefits of IoT. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, if I start simple and we don't go visionary, then how are we actually going to achieve any benefits? And all of what I'm going to talk about over the next few slides will describe the journey that typically is embarked upon with digital transformation. And now there's some basic simple steps you can take to get started with IoT and get started on a digital transformation journey and actually start to deliver benefits very early in that journey. And then we'll talk about the use cases that are related to that early stage of the journey and what specific benefits are associated with those use cases. But to begin with, there's a broad set of typical benefits that are not dependent on delivering the visual solutions. And you can see these on the slide in front of you. So the benefits are predominantly in 5 areas. So reduction of costs, which is associated with easily identifying when and why the assets in your business aren't running, and avoid expensive component failures by having the data available to do that in the right moment at the right time. That information can help you to identify which assets perform better or worse and use that information to determine whether you need to spend any money on fixing machine tools or whether you need to change your maintenance strategy, or whether it can inform your investment, your capital investment into your machine tools. Similarly, the energy costs, which is quite a broad topic at the moment, by harvesting the data from the machine tools and seeing what they are doing, when they are running, what energy they are using, what that's costing, you can make informed decisions about which machines to run and which machines need switching off during downtimes or during idle times. And this can really help unlock many cost benefits. With productivity, there's a whole host of productivity gains that can be gained just by capturing the most important data and removing some of those time expensive use cases and processes that you have associated with recording product and process data. You may have paper in your business, you may be transferring data from one system to another, you may be accessing multiple systems to retrieve data. All of this information could be harmonized just to make it simpler to give you the information you need when you need it, rather than actually having to go into many different systems or record many sets of data multiple times. So without going into complex analytics or any of the more broader use cases, by simply harnessing all the data around you and connecting the most important assets, you can remove those manual activities and paper trails and get that productivity gain. When we start to look at safety and compliance, there's lots of legislation associated with a broad range of industries, whether that's through COSH or HACCP. There's data that needs to be captured and then retrieved for auditing purposes. Having an automated trail of this data will ease and simplify the process of retrieving that information. And that again leads to many productivity gains and can also help make sure that you meet this legislation, you don't fall foul of failing an audit. With efficiency in the business and the agility of your business, there's a whole host of insights that can be gained to inform you how you can change your business processes to become more effective. And this can be seen by using something called OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. So this is where the data from your machines about how well those machines are running, how often they're running, when those machines are in downtime, how fast they're running versus how fast you expect them to run, and also what quality they're producing. This information produces a metric that you can use to compare in a very standard way each of your assets or assets from a similar process. So you can start to determine which machines are more productive and then learn why they are more productive than others. This starts to give you different answers about what investment you should make within your business. Is it that I need to employ more people? Is it that I need to invest in more hardware and more machine tools? Or is it actually that I need to make changes to the process and make changes to the way we operate the process to become more efficient? And it's the data and the insights that you can gain from these machines that can give you that information. And finally, the ability to innovate faster. And this comes from digital transformation in itself. You know, there will be a broad demographic of people within businesses that are either very familiar and used to technology or not so used to technology and maybe shy away from it. But within those demographics, by unlocking the data, whether it's in a very simple form or empowering people that are comfortable with it to further use that data and turn it into more insights, you start to get faster innovation. So what this means is you're not reliant upon going back to a machine tool provider every time you want them to change the way a machine HMI tells you about the process. That can become expensive and very difficult. Similarly, in-house, you don't need high programming skills. The technology within industrial IoT can not just provide you with the data, but provide you your employees with simple tools to take that data and translate it into different KPIs as you go on your digital transformation journey. So as you learn about the data and you start to learn that you need it to tell you something different, you can do that internally, and you can do that with your existing employees just through some very basic skills that's not very dependent on high programming skills. That knowledge that they acquire can really turn the data that you acquire into real insights and help you keep pace with the changing requirements over time. So those broad benefits really are seen across a range of IoT use cases and deployments. What we want to do now is look at the journey that you take and the simple steps that you take within industry to transform digitally within your business. Now, these steps start with, first of all, connecting assets, connecting devices, connecting sources of information. And as you work your way up through this typical journey, you can see that from connecting those devices, you can start to see different sources of data. You can start to see insights into your data, and that leads to understanding about the data. It leads to understanding about your processes, your machine tools, your people, and your equipment. Then as we get into the more advanced use cases, this is where we hear a lot of visionary language, the predicting and the adapting, which all becomes possible because you've taken the first few steps. So from connecting your assets and seeing the data and then using that data to give you key insights about your processes, you start to understand what it is you need to do next with your processes, your equipment, and your people, to then start to use that data and take the further steps in the future to build prediction models and maybe even create adaptive processes and automated adaptive processes. But it doesn't necessarily start at the top of this arrow. It starts at the bottom left. How does that look from a capability perspective? Well, this digital transformation journey that you can see now is a journey that's very use case focused. So just as I showed earlier, the connecting, seeing and understanding, what this shows is a broad number of use cases, but starting with connecting and monitoring assets right through to maintenance, energy, analyzing, and then all the way up to a full digital twin, systems of systems, and self-optimizing systems. The ones to the right-hand side of this model are are very much in the visionary space, and there'll be many businesses, typically larger organizations, that have been investing both in technology, people and processes for a number of years, that are still getting to grips and are still growing in the journey with digital twin, systems of systems, using artificial intelligence, and then actual self-optimizing systems, so you have a closed loop asset. But by starting with monitoring assets and evolving your business processes gradually and evolving your people gradually, it is possible to deliver benefits much sooner and in a much simpler way. So this is before doing all of the adaptive processes, before delivering a full digital twin, and before connecting up every single asset and process. You can enable some simple exchange of information and become self-reliant on the data and the information in your business, to take some very simple steps and some very important steps to get efficiency gains from your business. So you may now be wondering, well, that's great, there's apparently some benefits, but what does that actually mean to me? What are the actual use cases involved with connecting and monitoring assets and doing some preventative maintenance? So these are the ones we're going to focus on now. So these first few steps on this journey are what we'll talk about over the next few use cases. To get started, there's three real simple use case themes. There's asset management, there's asset maintenance, and then there's energy optimization. And in these first three steps, there are four broad use cases. There's two associated with asset management, and this is condition monitoring and asset performance management. There's predictive maintenance within asset maintenance, and then there's energy management within energy optimization. Now, it's often better to start with these use cases. So what I'm going to do next is show you what these use cases are and what the benefits are that are associated with them. And these are the ones you can think about within your organizations or your businesses, and start understanding what use cases you could benefit from based upon these benefits cases. Condition monitoring is simply about allowing you to see specific parameters for your process that's important to you and your business and in your processes. So these are things like temperature, vibrations, pressure levels. And these KPIs can help you track the conditions of the process or the assets and compare assets. And if any of these KPIs or metrics deviate from normal condition, or they go beyond a threshold that you believe to be problematic, whether it's for the asset or it could cause your product within that asset to non-conform, you can set these thresholds very easily by connecting data and then configuring the threshold. It can indicate an issue live at the process, but then also indicate that issue remotely without you being stood at the process. So you don't necessarily have to be stood in front of a machine tool to see that it's out of control. What's typical today in industry for many years of deploying control systems with machine tools and HMIs is that the data for that machine tool is generally only visible at the machine tool itself. Instead, what you get is the ability to see this information remotely, but also be alerted for it through push notifications to your phone or via an email. And this gives you the information about whether a process is deteriorating and its health reducing before it actually reaches or goes beyond the limit. So what we typically see with condition monitoring is a 25% increase in production experienced by a number of industries that have implemented consistent and accurate condition monitoring across their key assets. And this is done by enabling them to proactively identify production line issues, start remedial actions prior to asset failure, and really help them to reduce unscheduled downtime. You can move from models of scheduling downtime for asset maintenance and actually use the data from the machine tool to tell you when a machine needs maintaining or when a device or piece of equipment needs maintaining, rather than going off maybe a maintenance schedule that was derived from many years of understanding. Sorry, I think I just lost my connection there. So many years of understanding that maybe doesn't have the insights that you've got from today's technology. By doing this, you can maximize uptime of the assets, And then also you can gain insights into the health of those assets across all of your locations, whether that's a single factory or whether that's multiple factories. The next use case I wanted to talk about was actual asset performance management. So this is about monitoring and tracking the condition of the asset and the KPIs within your asset, but using OEE to showcase how well that asset's performing. So rather than just monitoring the actual conditions of the process against set limits, there's the standard OEE overall equipment effectiveness metric. It sums up the availability, the performance, and the quality of the product coming off our asset to give you an OEE KPI score. So a little bit more about OEE. Availability is when that machine is running versus when it's planned not to be running. Performance is how fast the machine is running versus a desired speed. And then the quality metric is that machine tool producing good components or bad components? And each of those KPIs sum up to the OEE score. So by having OEE on your key assets, in the areas of business where you may have bottlenecks or you may have problems with productivity, you can get a 20% improvement in productivity just by improving OEE by 10%. By having that data for the key assets and the key processes, you can use it to make improvements and reduce bottlenecks. This can lead to quickly reacting to anomalies with real-time alerts, indicating a need for action. You can refine the KPIs that you use to monitor those processes. So maybe you were monitoring them to something previously that now you have the data to hand, you can actually use a different KPI, derive a different KPI to get better monitoring of that process and get more precise about the performance of that asset. And then as you gain more data, you can continually adjust these machines based upon the latest information and the latest data. And this keeps you on top of continuous improvement processes based on all of that real-time data. Next is predictive maintenance. So this is obviously before prescriptive maintenance, which was briefly discussed earlier by Gavin. This is about being able to capture data about the performance of your machine tools and assets, and then being able to use that data to determine alerts and thresholds that will signal when a particular piece of equipment is deteriorating health, or when a particular component on a piece of equipment is deteriorating health. And this allows you to be more proactive, but also more accurate about your asset maintenance scheduling. And what you see here from doing this is typically a 30% reduction in overall maintenance costs by applying predictive maintenance. So this doesn't necessarily mean you're stepping straight into having automated predictive maintenance models. This means that you've empowered your decision making with data from your assets that can tell you whether a machine is deteriorating in health before it actually breaks down or before that component actually fails. And this leads to improved productivity and a reduction in maintenance costs, which could be through a lower use of consumables because you're doing less maintenance, but also avoiding downtime because you may have less maintenance downtime schedules because you're being more accurate and more predictive about your maintenance planning. And this ultimately can lead to understanding the root cause of quality issues and production issues with your process. So you can increase the uptime of your assets, you can improve the utilization and get better yield out of those assets over time. All of this and all of these use cases so far can come from the same connections from the same assets. By using the same data from the components of the assets, you can monitor the condition of the process. You can use the data to put more predictive maintenance scheduling in place. And you can also alert people and alert users and alert business process users about the health of the equipment and the health of the process to understand whether you're going to get your products on time or whether you need to attend to a machine tool to get the process running again. And finally, a very poignant topic at the moment is energy management. If you're looking within your business to sign up to ISO 50001 legislation or anything similar, then energy management is a a really important part of that to be able to achieve that certification. By connecting up your assets, energy management allows you to track and manage the energy use of the equipment within your plant. And this is done through either monitoring the use of electricity, the use of water, the use of gas, etc., all of the various energy media. And this can be highlighted very simply at point of use and also remotely, to not just determine how much energy you're using, but what is it costing you and what is your CO2 footprint. And then you can use that data to determine whether maybe you've got inefficient use of equipment, maybe you've got equipment that is sat idle and it's costing you and it's producing CO2 emissions unnecessarily, and it could be switched off, or it could be it could be left idle, and you can use a more efficient piece of equipment. This typically leads to about 37%. Over time, this has typically seen a 37% waste in industrial plants. This is over a third of the energy that comes into plants that's been wasted because of inefficient use of equipment. So by connecting this equipment and having that information, you can make decisions to reduce that waste and reduce the costs. So you can identify peaks and dips in your energy usage and indicate anomalies. You can find ways to cut the waste and that contributes to high energy bills, and you can improve your environmental sustainability efforts, which again is a very topical at this moment in time. So those are the use cases and the typical benefits. I hope that's been insightful. So I'm now going to pass back to Gabby, who's just going to talk about what are the next steps. But what you will see over the coming webinars in the next few months are demonstrations of each of these 4 use cases that I've just described. So look out for those, because you'll actually see demos of how the technology, the IoT technology, is actually used to deliver these 4 use cases. So back to you, Gav.
Thanks, Andy. I'll get this back up at my end. Okay. So what next? We're coming to the end of the pack now. So because you all were so kind as to give up part of your day to come and listen to us today, in return, you're all entitled to a one-day consultancy session with myself or Andy, or both of us if you're really lucky. And as part of that, we can do an IoT demo. We have some industrial equipment that is portable, that is connected to an IoT platform, and we can demonstrate some of these use cases at your premises, or we can do it remotely. As Andy said, we are going to demonstrate them in future webinars, but we will be reaching out to everybody that's attended today's session to see if you want to take up this offer of having a free one-day consultancy at your premises if that suits. So look out for us reaching out to you to hopefully arrange those sessions. And just, this is the last slide now, just another reminder that the next webinar is coming up at the end of November, and we're going to delve into condition monitoring with IoT. So please look out for that and sign up and tell all your friends, please. So with that, we're on to, we're just over 30 minutes. So we're on to Q&A. Robin, do you want to facilitate this next bit? I'm not sure if any have come in on the Q&A function.
Yeah, for sure, guys. So we don't have any on the Q&A function, but I would like to open it up to the attendees. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand and I will unmute you. Alternatively, if you'd like to pop a question in the chat box, we can come back to you either within this webinar or after the webinar has finished. That is also an option.
got some very shy attendees today. Even if it's not a question, you know, if you've got any other thoughts around, you know, what are the blockers, what are the challenges you think you've currently got around in your businesses today to getting started, you know, please feel free to just share that, and we'll just have a general discussion about that. It doesn't have to be a specific question, if that helps.
Okay, so that looks like it's all for our webinar today. We've had no questions come through, but please feel free to send your questions through directly. That's absolutely fine. We can always answer them off the webinar. I know it can be a bit of pressure sometimes doing a live Q&A, so we do appreciate that. We are open to conversations. Gavin and Andy, Gavin, if you want to put your contact details on the slide, go back a few slides.
Sure.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Try it.
There we go. So we've got the contact details there, if you'd like to note those down. If not, I will follow up with everyone following this webinar. Thank you all for your time. We do really appreciate it. Please feel free to join one of our next webinars where we will delve deeper into IoT for industry. And yes, enjoy the rest of your Monday, guys. Thank you very much.